The sound of a high-voltage arc cracked in the night, and then silence. That was the moment I knew my neighbor Carol had crossed a line she would never come back from. She thought she was just borrowing my EV charger for the good of the community, but she had no idea she had declared war on a man who spends his days designing traps for people far smarter than her. She thought she was stealing electricity. What she didn't realize was that she was about to lose everything that made her feel powerful. My name's Marcus. I live in Westmere Heights, one of those neighborhoods where lawns look cloned from a magazine cover and people whisper about the height of your hedges. I work in cybersecurity, long days of battling ransomware, patching holes, keeping predators out of systems. So when I drive home after a 10-hour shift, I want peace. I want my driveway, my bourbon, my wife waiting inside. What I got instead was a white SUV in my driveway hooked up to my brand new charger like it was hers. At first I thought it was some bizarre mistake. I actually convinced myself a neighbor got lost, confused, whatever. But then I saw her. Carol. Picture a woman in her late 40s, blonde bob, sharp enough to cut glass, athleisure outfit that probably cost more than my first car. She looked up from dragging a giant flamingo lawn ornament and gave me this blank stare when I asked why her car was plugged into my charger. "Oh, that's yours," she said. "Well, it's a fast charger, right? It should benefit the community." Community. That word still makes my eye twitch. I explained it was wired into my own panel, my property. She smiled like I was the crazy one. "It's for the good of the planet," she told me. She actually dropped the cord onto my driveway like she was doing me a favor. I should have realized then people like Carol don't make mistakes. They make rules for themselves and excuses for everyone else. 3 days later, it happened again. Only this time she blocked my garage. My own car was trapped inside her SUV, leeching off my charger, my driveway chained by her entitlement. My wife, Sarah, was furious. I pounded on Carol's door. Her husband, Bill, opened it, soft smile, shoulders slumped like he'd been living under storm clouds for years. He tried to explain she thought we had a sharing arrangement. I almost laughed in his face. Sharing. With my property. And then Carol appeared smug as ever, dish towel in hand, telling me I was making a scene. When I threatened to tow her car, she smirked and snapped back. "Fine, but I'll report you to the HOA for creating a hostile environment." That was the moment something broke inside me. She wasn't just trespassing anymore, she believed she was untouchable. And the worst part, lying in bed that night staring at the ceiling, I actually wondered if maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was being petty about a driveway. Maybe the problem was me. That was my lowest point. The moment I considered selling the house, walking away just to avoid another screaming match across the lawn, Sarah even whispered, "Maybe we should move." And for a second I thought about it, but then Carol's smirk flashed in my mind, the way she looked at me like I was powerless. And I realized, no, I wasn't weak. I was trained to deal with intruders. I didn't just build walls, I built traps. And it was time to build one for her. I called it Project Nightshade. I stayed up until 3 in the morning at my desk, monitors, glowing fingers flying over the keyboard. The charger wasn't just a plug, it was a smart device with an API, a backdoor meant for diagnostics. To me, that was a weapon. I wrote code that would identify her vehicle's digital handshake and lock the cable in place. No matter how hard she pulled, it wouldn't release until I wanted it to. And oh, when the day came, it was glorious. Carol strutted out of her house in yoga pants, gym bag slung over her shoulder, phone pressed to her ear. She unplugged the charger, or tried to. Nothing. She yanked, jabbed at her car's touchscreen, slammed doors, muttered curses. Then she came to my door. "Your charger broke my car," she barked. I played dumb. Really? It was working fine earlier. I explained with all the calm of a tech support agent that high-end EVs lock cables during a fault to avoid electrocution. "Could be a $20,000, $1,000 repair if you force it," I told her. The color drained from her face. She demanded I fix it. I shook my head. "Can't override safety codes. Liability, you understand." Liability, that word landed like a hammer. She knew exactly what it meant. So I printed a trespass agreement, slid it across the porch, and added an invoice. $500 for an emergency consultation. She wanted to scream, but my security camera was recording. My wife was watching, and her husband was begging her to just sign. And she did. She paid. That night I drank the most expensive scotch I'd ever bought with her money. I thought that was the end. I was wrong. A week later an envelope arrived. Violation of HOA Bylaw 7.4 subsection C. Unapproved exterior paint. Apparently my navy blue front door wasn't on their sacred list of colors. Fine $100 a day until repainted. 2 more letters followed, one for my garden hose holder, one for a small flag Sarah stuck in a planter. Carol had turned the HOA into her personal army. That crushed me harder than anything. I stared at those papers on the counter, wondering how far she could push me. I'd already beaten her once. Why did it feel like I was losing anyway? That was the night Sarah suggested selling the house. For the first time I almost agreed. Maybe Carol had won. But something shifted. I realized I'd been playing defense, reacting to every petty notice, every violation. That's not how you win a war. That's not how I fight ransomware or hackers. You don't patch one hole, you audit the entire system. And that's what I did. I downloaded every page of the HOA's governing documents, 280 pages of dense legal nonsense. I turned it into a searchable database. I cross-referenced county maps, Google Earth history, every bylaw and subclause. I worked for days, barely sleeping. And what I found was devastating. The entire neighborhood was out of compliance. Everyone had a violation. Basketball hoops, mailboxes, window cleanings, tree species, hundreds of tiny rules no one followed. Carol thought she had a weapon. I built an arsenal. I bound the report 200 pages thick with photos, bylaw citations, penalties. Then I mailed it straight to the HOA president, Richard, Carol's smug ally. The silence afterward was louder than any argument. 2 days later, Bill called me, whispering like a hostage. "She's losing it. She's talking to lawyers. What do you want?" I told him the truth. I want to be left alone. But I also wanted every neighbor to know exactly how fragile their homes were under Carol's game. So Sarah and I walked the block at night, slipping one-page summaries into every mailbox. The clubhouse meeting was chaos. Packed to the walls, residents clutching my summary, panicking over mailboxes and flags and basketball hoops. Richard tried to dismiss me as a crank. Carol stood up and said, "This isn't personal, it's about community values." And I laughed. I stood in front of that room and told everyone, if the rules are enforced equally, you're all guilty. Every single one of you, including Richard, especially Carol. The room turned. The fear shifted into fury, not at me, but at them. I motioned 3 things: amnesty for all past violations, immediate resignation of Richard as president, and a new committee to rewrite the bylaws. A dozen voices seconded me before I even finished. The vote wasn't close. Richard's face fell. Carol sat frozen, her power evaporating as the same neighbors she'd weaponized turned on her. And then came the final blow. Weeks later, a flatbed truck rolled up to her house. Crews with jackhammers tore apart her brand-new driveway extension, illegal under the bylaws she once used to terrorize me. I watched from my porch, coffee in hand, as the system she loved crushed her with the same rules she thought made her untouchable. That was the day I learned something important. Bullies don't fear anger, they fear consequences.